So if you've ever tried to notch your Fiddle Leaf Fig to get it to grow more branches, but you weren't successful, there's probably a reason why. And today I'll talk about the biggest mistakes that I see. So the number one mistake that I see is trying to notch a sick plant. If your plant is dropping leaves, if it has brown spots, if it has root rot, if it's leggy, if it is just not looking healthy and it's not growing, a notch is not going to be successful. So go back to the basics, make sure you have a really healthy, happy plant before you try notching, because notching is in essence growing a new branch, and if your plant isn't putting out new growth at all, then your notching is not going to be successful. The second reason that I really see plants not responding to notching is they're not getting enough light or they're not getting enough fertilizer. It takes a lot of energy from both photosynthesis and nutrients to put out new branches, so you want to make sure that you're fertilizing every week with a good fertilizer like Fiddle Leaf Fig plant food, and that your plant is getting as much light as possible. In fact, putting your plant outside in a covered area where it gets a ton of indirect light for the month prior to notching is a great way to have it save up reserves so it has enough energy to put out new branches. The next mistake is not using a rooting hormone. So I recommend every time you're going to go through the effort to notch your plant to actually dab it with a little bit of a propagation promoter solution. This is just a naturally occurring hormone that tells your plant to focus its energy on the area of your new branch. So we make this houseplant propagation promoter where you could just put a little on a cotton ball and dab it onto the injury or the notch section of your plant to increase your chances of success. There's no reason not to use a rooting hormone if you're going to take the time to notch your plant. You really want to make sure you're as successful as possible. Another mistake that I see is people trying to notch in the wrong season. So if it's very cold or very dark where you live and your plant is going through dormancy, it's not going to respond to notching. It's not going to be putting out new branches. The best time to notch is right before the growing season. So, maybe in the spring or early summer. A lot of people set a little reminder on their calendar to notch on the first day of spring, and I think that's a great reminder to, take a look at all your plants and start your new branches as early as possible so they can grow as much as possible throughout the growing season. Another mistake that I see all the time is people trying to notch a plant that is too young. Basically, the notching process only works on a plant that is a little bit of an adolescent or, at least not a baby. And so you want it to have kind of a woody stem, and you want it to not have a pliable green stem. Otherwise, the notch won't work. If you have a pliable baby plant, you're gonna wanna use either pruning or pinching, and I have videos about those to get them to branch. You can still get it to branch, you just need to use a different method. For notching, you're gonna need a plant that is old enough and has a woody stem. Another very common thing I see is people don't cut deep enough. And so there's this kind of myth out there on the internet that you just have to do a very small kind of nick or a cut, but what you wanna do is take a big notch out of your plant. It can feel like you're murdering your plant. I know it's a little apprehensive because if you go all the way through, you lose everything above that, but you wanna really cut through at least a quarter of your plant and take a whole notch out of it. And so it's important to cut far enough to create an injury that disrupts the flow of hormones so that your plant focuses on the node beneath it to put out a new branch. If you don't disrupt the hormone flow, it's not gonna work. And if you don't disrupt it for long enough, your plant isn't gonna have enough energy and enough time to create that branch. So the reason we do a notch is because it takes a relatively long time to heal. Whereas if you just do a cut, it can heal over in a week or two, which doesn't give us the 2 to 4 weeks that we need for the new branch to form. And the last reason I see that notching fails is if people notch a branch that is basically dead. So what you want to do is cut into the branch until you see white sap. If you're not seeing white sap, if the branch looks woody all the way through, that means that it's dead and you need to cut down lower until you actually see that white sap. So a lot of times people will see a dead portion of their plant, they want it to branch and they wish it would, but if it's dead, it's just not going to happen. So make sure you get that white sap injury, that you use that propagation promoter, and that you give it 2 to 4 weeks to be successful. So let me know if this video is helpful. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tips on how to prune, notch, and pinch your Fiddle Leaf Fig. Thanks for watching. Bye.